Open center and closed center hydraulic systems are used on John Deere industrial equipment, either individually or in combination. This repair guide will show you how to disassemble, inspect, and assemble typical open center system components, including motors, pumps, and valves. Fixed displacement pumps are the heart of John Deere open center hydraulic systems. Let's begin with a typical single section gear pump. Before the pump is disassembled, scribe a line on the housing to aid assembly. Gear type pumps are the most common kind used in open center systems. Regardless of the manufacturer, the only real differences are in the types of housing material and the way they control internal leakage. To separate the pump sections, securely hold the pump and tap the shaft on a wooden block. The pump body will remain doweled to either the front plate or the back plate. To separate the pump body from either plate, place the drive gear in the bushing and tap the protruding end with a plastic hammer. The pump contains finely machined parts, so be very careful to avoid damaging them. Inspection will begin with the back plate. The O-ring stops leakage to the outside of the pump. If there are any nicks or burrs in the O-ring groove, remove them with emery cloth. The oil grooves in the bushing should be in line with the dowel pin holes and close to the outside of the housing. Should the bushings be scored or excessively worn, you'll have to replace the back plate. The bushings are not supplied as a service part. The larger of two cavities is the inlet cavity. The two small holes permit the oil which lubricates the bushings to return to the pump inlet. Check the holes for obstructions. The rear pressure plate has a web for strength and support. As you remove the plate, remember that the bronze side of the pressure plate is toward the gear and the web is over the smaller discharge cavity. Inspect the pressure plate carefully. It seals the ends of the gears and is critical to efficient pump operation. Some discoloration and very slight grooves on the pressure plate indicate normal wear. If the plate has deep circular scratches, is pitted, or shows signs of heavy wear, replace it. The large cavity in the pump center section matches the inlet cavity in the back plate. The hole in the discharge cavity supplies pressure oil to the back side of the rubber diaphragm in the front plate. Check the hole to see if it is obstructed. Inspect the gear track wear pattern on the inlet side of the housing. Normally, it will appear bright and shiny with small scratches and pockmarks which develop during pump break-in. Deep scratches or holes larger than 1/16 of an inch across are signs of damage which will allow leakage past the gear teeth and reduce pump output. The gears are matched at the factory and color-coded. This drive gear and this idler gear are from a properly operating pump. See how the loaded side of the gear teeth is polished. And notice the high gloss of the journals at bushing points and at the shaft seal area. If these areas are rough or show excessive wear, the gears must be replaced as a set. If the edges of the gear teeth are sharp, break the edge with emery cloth. Under the gears is the front pressure plate. The bronze side faces the gears. Like the web pressure plate, it should not have deep scratches, pits, or be excessively worn. A check ball and spring are located in the front plate on the inlet side of the pump. Some pumps use 2 balls and springs. If the ball is missing or the spring is broken, a pressure flow surge on the inlet side of the pump can damage the shaft seal. Under the steel backup gasket and paper protector gasket is the rubber diaphragm. This is perhaps the most critical area in a gear pump of this type. Pressure oil is routed under the diaphragm. It expands and causes the pressure plates to seal against the sides of the gears. Check the diaphragm for cuts and imperfections. Also carefully inspect the front plate cavity for nicks or sharp edges which could cut a new diaphragm. Like the bushings in the back plate, these bushings are pressed into the housing. If the bushings are damaged, the front plate must be replaced. Remove the O-ring and inspect the O-ring groove for damage. The final step of disassembly of a single-section gear pump is removal of the shaft seal. Take it out of the housing. Be careful not to damage the housing bore. The 2 drilled passages just below the seal return leakage oil to the inlet cavity. One passage leads to the idler shaft cavity and the other to the check ball cavity. These passages should not be obstructed. That's how you disassemble and inspect this particular gear pump. When you assemble a pump, check the machine parts catalog to determine if a service parts repair kit is available. The rubber diaphragm must be installed with the open part of the V-groove down. Use a dull tool to avoid damaging the diaphragm. Tuck the paper protector gasket and steel backup gasket into the diaphragm. Insert the ball and spring into the hole. Don't forget that the bronze side of the pressure plate must face the gears. Also, be sure the pressure plate fits inside the raised lip of the diaphragm. If the O-ring is not correctly fitted into the groove, it could be damaged when the pump is assembled. Check to make sure the lock rings are seated in their grooves. To provide initial lubrication, dip the gears in oil. Be sure they are installed with the painted ends facing in the same direction. The scribed line eliminates any confusion when deciding in which position the housing mounts. Remember, the bronze side of the pressure plate faces the gears and the web is over the smaller pressure cavity. Again, using the scribed line as a guide, replace the back plate. Be sure the O-ring does not slip from the grooves and become wedged between the housing and plate. All that remains is replacing the shaft seal in the single-section gear pump. Coat a new drive shaft oil seal with a generous amount of lubriplate and work it down over the drive shaft. Use a small plastic hammer to seat the seal. The pump shaft should rotate with a small amount of drag, but should turn freely after a short period of use.